The next film we're going to be talking about is Clerks.
Clerks!
In 1994, Kevin Smith released his directorial debut named Clerks. Made on a budget of $27,000, this indie comedy film was a day in the life of two convenience stores clerks, played by Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson. The film would eventually get picked up by Harvey Weinstein and the Weinstein Company and gross $3 million in theaters and launched Kevin Smith's professional filmmaking career.
Did you say Jew?
I didn't say Jew. You said Jew.
Who said Jew? You said
I think I said Jew. Guys, I think I said Jew.
But that's okay.
No, it's not.
We're not disparaging Jews. We're just saying Jew, right? Harvey Weinstein is Jewish. He's of the Jewish persuasion, right?
I don't think he's persuaded. Like he's gay?
No, he's not gay.
No,
Jewish people aren't gay. How could they?
Well, they can be
more of them.
He's of the Jewish persuasion. Let's
Jewish
end
people
there.
can be gay. So as a first movie,
Right.
I think Clerks has a lot of good potential in it. Like, the dialogue to me seems very sharp. The camera work is not very impressive, though. Mainly, it feels like the strength of this movie is the dialogue and the jokes and stuff like that.
Well, I would like to say, I thought the camera work, wasn't that impressive, but it's his first movie, so let's give him leeway with that. I thought what was impressive with that was the set pieces that he had to create in order to make every scene kind of look fresh, because every scene pretty much takes place in the convenience store.
Right. Behind the counter, mostly.
Behind the counter, and he had to, be a little creative to not make it look, too tedious.
Yeah.
And that they're in one spot. So I thought that was very impressive.
I think it's very interesting about the movie how you see that his strength really is dialogue. And it's very raw in this movie, but you would see, like, in his later films that he becomes much more comfortable in writing dialogue and making it less stale, I find.
I thought in the dialogue, the dialogue in this movie is, I guess, a major part, but it's mostly they're slackers, right? So the dialogue is going to be mostly stuff that deviates from the main subject they're talking about. So that's what makes it interesting, how really silly they are.
but I think that's a two-sided coin, because sometimes the dialogue is really good because they are slackers. It feels relatable, like they're just having a conversation with themselves. But sometimes if the conversation is also trying to be a joke, right? And since the conversations usually last long and there's a long amount of dialogue, if it's not funny, you're watching one scene for a while.
Right. Like I said, we're talking about the dialogue. So the strength is the dialogue of the movie. But I think what makes the dialogue, it's quick-witted. So that's what makes it interesting. And the jokes are really funny, and sometimes they're perverse, but they're smart. They're not, they're kind of philosophical, and it works to that. It works for those characters.
Yeah. I think, like, the content of the dialogue also really helps make it relatable, because that's probably what people who are working in convenience stores are talking about. Like, they're talking about relationship stuff, they're talking about movies.
Let's not stereotype it, but that's a lot of
show some respect for the convenience store clerks of the world.
Yeah, that's a lot of Gen X stuff. I don't think most convenient.
Well, no, but even think about it. Like, if you go out with your friends, what are you going to be talking about? It might be sports. It might be movies,
for sure.
That kind of thing.
For sure.
Right?
And we're always just passing time,
and
not really doing anything.
Right.
Much like Clerks.
But that's kind of a thing that I don't think is done so much in other films, is that they talk about dialogue relevant to a plot or something, where this movie makes it feel relatable by having dialogue that just talking. It feels like, I'm just a fly on the wall of what these guys are actually talking about themselves.
What you're trying to say is that it's authentic, and that's the strength of it. And I think that that's what works.
Would you say it's at all similar to kind of how in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, how Jules and Vincent just kind of take a break from doing their hitman job to just talk about his trip to Amsterdam and things like that?
But the thing about this movie is that it doesn't really have a plot. Yeah, it has a bit of a love story in it. But for the most
really,
part,
I wouldn't call it a love story. I'd say that's a subplot of relationships, because everybody has relationships at that age. They're young, they're in their early 20s. They're like you said, they're slackers. They don't know what they're doing. A lot of times they're in school and they just waste their time, a lot like what we usually do.
Yeah, but Dante is dealing with the fact that he has a girlfriend right now, and he has an ex-girlfriend that he's really into. So he's trying to decide. That seems to be where
it's never serious. It's very frivolous all the way. It's not serious.
It's not the main focus of the film. But it is present throughout, and it feels like that is kind of the hook. Like, it always comes back to that, despite the Star Wars dialogue, despite getting
pop culture dialogue,
like talking a lot about customers, the hockey scene.
Cigarettes.
Like, this all stuff. Cigarettes.
What I like to say about, you mentioned Tarantino's dialogue. What I did like about Kevin Smith, and these two, Quentin Tarantino and Kevin Smith, both didn't go to film school. They just kind of liked films and they wanted.
Well, he went to film school, but he dropped out.
Right. So they didn't. Okay, they never completed anything.
Which one went to film school and dropped out?
Kevin Smith.
Okay.
So Quentin worked in the video store, but Quentin's fun. It's funny because he never did a movie like that. He always did something that he wanted to do, like nothing like that. Always
Like,
like
even
Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs are not. They're not at all.
Like, even though it has like
Right.
even though it has the very casual dialogue, it's still a samurai film.
Yeah,
or it's still a gangster film, or a heist
It's
film.
a heist film, or it's you
So-
know, you can't really put a finger on it actually sometimes, but because there's a lot of elements in his movies. But Kevin, what's interesting about Kevin, he does that. He talks about that life, and I think he succeeds in that, and it worked really well.
I feel like when you're watching this movie, I know a lot about Kevin Smith through his podcast and his book and other mediums, but I find you really do feel like it's his life that he's putting on screen. Did you get that?
Yeah, I think that's part of most filmmakers, anyways. But yeah, sure, that is.
But I
That's
felt like-
that's what I said. The authenticity of the movie is what works, and it's earnest, like Steven would say for some certain
And
albums.
it's right what you know, right?
Right, it's right what you know, and it's I always like to say it's not what's it about, it's how it's about and how it's done. Execution is very important as much as script.
In rewatching it, did you find that your interest was wavering at times?
No, I had fun throughout.
You were gripped throughout?
Yeah, I was gripped throughout. The banter was a lot of fun. It was just a whole lot of nothing, and it's relatable, I guess.
I think also another big strength of the movie is, even though the actors here, many of them are first-time actors, I think Jeff Anderson and Brian O'Halloran, who played Dante and Randall, they had really good chemistry with each other, and that is really tough to do bring from first-time actors.
That's definitely impressive.
Well, because I know that I heard that Kevin Smith kind of casted a lot of his friends, his real life friends. Were they actually friends in real life?
No, because Brian O'Halloran was a theater actor who saw an ad for the movie, and Jeff Anderson was actually his friend from high school.
Oh, Jeff Anderson. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, Brian O'Halloran. I know that scene.
I think also when you know the backstory of this film, or at least backstory of Kevin Smith, there is a charm to the film because Walter Flanagan, who's now in the TV show Comic Book Man, plays like 5 different characters in this movie. Like he comes back in like different costumes and whatever. Okay. And Scott Mosier, who's also the producer of the movie, he's the guy who interrupts the hockey match.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
And he's the snowball guy.
Okay.
And they accomplish that by just shaving his beard, and he looks different. But I think there's definitely a charm in how indie that is, that you're casting the exact same character in several spots, but just like changing it slightly so it works.
Yeah, the omnipresent guy. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I thought overall it just works as a movie, and it's a good, solid. It's become a cult hit. So
yeah, I think one of the things that's so impressive about this movie is it feels like anyone could make this movie, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Again, that's the backhand compliment that anyone could make this movie, but what makes it so great? But it's definitely something that makes you feel like you could make it. And I think that's all you really need, just a little jolt.
It's a movie of the people.
It's power to the people.
Like, it really felt like here was a guy, Kevin Smith, who didn't really have any formal training, didn't really come from any film background.
Well, he just liked movies, just like all of us watch a lot of film work. Yeah.
And he was able to make this movie and
basically from New Jersey.
From New Jersey.
New Jersey.
And basically kickstarted his career. And I think a lot of indie filmmakers now take great inspiration from that, because they're like, oh, well, if it's just a dialogue-driven film and there's no special effects and you could still become really successful off of this, I think that's a great motivator.
And now they'll actually use Kickstarter to kickstart their careers.
Well, that's a different kind, but yeah. For Kevin, though, it was like definitely a gamble, because it's $27,000, and he was like a lower middle class guy. So if this movie didn't pay off, $27,000 was a lot of money, especially in like early '90s.
And that's true. Like I said, the Gen X. There's a whole Gen X thing about that. I'm not going to get into that though.
Okay. The two big things that spun off from this movie are Jay and Silent Bob. So I'm actually curious, what did you think of them in this movie?
Does anyone think Silent Bob Jay is actually gay?
No.
No, you don't think? You never thought he could be gay? Okay. Well, I'll save that for the end of this podcast. But Jay and Silent Bob. Okay, these are guys. I guess what they're on the other. I'd say they're slackers too, but they're slackers that actually do something. Though they sell drugs, so they are doing something.
They're productive slackers.
They're productive slackers, and they just hang around the corner, not doing listening to their boombox and.
Yeah. I feel like in this movie, though, they weren't given very much to do.
No, they weren't much.
I feel like Kevin wrote them in, but there wasn't really a point for them to be in the movie.
Except for the scene with the Russian metal star.
No, like I'm saying they had good gags and stuff like that, but there weren't very many. And
yeah, I know. There was
their only meaningful part was the ending where Silent Bob tells Randall, there's a lot of fine women in the world, but most of them just cheat on you.
That's right.
Not many bring you lasagna.
Right, exactly.
Paraphrasing, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in this movie they weren't used very well.
Yeah.
They weren't used to their full potential.
No, yeah, we did. Well, I guess maybe in his perspective, he was saving them for. Maybe he knew this was going to be something.
Well, he didn't know that it would be another thing. He just
I don't know. You never know. Maybe he wanted to keep these characters. He just I don't know.
Because
in the back of his head. Yeah.
Steven?
All I remember is that it was funny. I didn't even remember that he had a girlfriend in the movie because I saw it so long.
Oh, what do you think about leaving out the coffin scene?
The coffin.
That I thought was hilarious.
Okay, so there was another thing I actually wanted to comment. I think Kevin Smith actually really used editing and cuts well in this movie. Like he used them for more effect in the jokes. Like in the funeral scene, he would have like a quiet, somber walk up to the funeral, and then 2 seconds later they would cut and they were like running to the car. I think that definitely gives it the extra punch in the joke.
Yeah.
So I think that was actually well done and impressive for a first-time director.
Right.
The black and white. Did you like it in this movie, or you would have preferred color?
It's your first film. I'm sure black and white's fine.
But color was available at the time. So
it was available, but he wanted to make a splash. I guess he wanted to try to say something.
Did you think that black and white helped the film? Because I think it wouldn't have made a difference either way.
I thought it. I think it would have made a difference. I like the black and white. It always gives it a tone. It gives it an altered reality. I always like that idea of black and white. So even though it's supposed to be sort of realistic, because it's kind of naturalism, but. I thought the black and white gives it another dimension. So, yeah, I liked it.
I found it was a bit... Like, it made the film look really indie. So that
it almost made me think... The black and white almost made me think of, like, security camera footage. Like, as if you were a camera in the store.
In the story, you're right. That could have been the point. That could have been the point.
I don't know if that was the point. I think he was influenced by a lot of other indie directors at the time who were making things in black and white.
You never know. That's something that
that's
keeps our minds.
That's not a font. That's not.
Could have asked him that,
We will patent that.
But that's not a bad way to look at it.
That's true. I totally think it.
Okay, one last thing I want to bring up before we close out on our conversation. The ending of the film is essentially Randall and Dante have a conversation where you have to either shit or get off the pot. Right? Mm-hmm. And then Dante loses both girls, and that's the way the movie ends. The day just ends.
Yeah.
But there's the alternate ending of the movie where Dante actually dies. Right before closing, someone comes in and kills him.
I don't remember.
And it's just like but it's just like a random act of violence and so on and so forth.
What do you mean? It's like someone robs the store or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the original ending. Do you think that would have worked better? Do you like it? No?
No, I thought it was... No, because the point of the movie is nothing really happens. Then at the end of the movie, you say, oh, something happens, he dies.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have worked well. I thought that was the perfect ending for it.
I think it was kind of done in a deliberate attempt to kind of be shocking towards the end. Like, oh, wow. But it doesn't add enough to the movie, and I think that not having it there ultimately gives you options for sequels.
Yeah, not the sequel. Of course, you don't really want to do things for sequels. But I thought it goes better with the context of the movie. I didn't think killing him at the end would be as memorable if they left that. I don't think people would look back on this movie as much as they did.
It would kind of end on a sour note.
Yeah, not just the sour note thing. I just think it doesn't have much, it doesn't have much. Wouldn't have much resonance. I think. I think it'd be just
like it feels like tonally different from everything because like this is incredibly serious, whereas the other stuff, like even though it's relationship stuff and comfort in the sense of you don't want to move forward in your life, you're very comfortable.
Exactly. There's no.
It's not as serious as murder, so putting that thing in there changes the tone of the movie, especially right at the end.
Yeah.
So I think keeping it out was a good idea in the end. Cutting it.
Yeah.
All right, and those are our thoughts of Clerks.